when the Kaiser was in his pomp and glory, and the Hohenzollers were at their heights? I was only a kid then, but I thought the Kaiser was about the most active person I'd ever seen. You felt he was ready for war at any time, the bigger the better, and he made all Germany feel it. You know, clanking guns, gleaming bayonets, swords ready to spring at you at any minute. Well, it's the same over here right now.
Neil, the World War was a red nightmare, and it seems incredible that it should have started with such a relatively unimportant event as the assassination of the Archduke Leopold of Austria.
June 28, 1914 began like any other summer morning in Sarajevo, a quiet city in the Balkans that few outside Europe paid attention to, yet within a few hours it would become the epicenter of a chain of events that would drag the entire world into war. Crowds gathered along the streets as the motorcade of Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, prepared to pass through the city during a visit intended to display imperial power and stability in a region that had become the most volatile part of Europe. At the time, Europe was dominated by massive empires: Britain, Germany, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, each seeking more land, influence, and resources, and all heavily invested in militarization, building armies, warships, artillery, and weapons that made the continent a tinderbox of potential conflict. Nations had also formed complex alliances: the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente of France, Russia, and Britain, which meant that if one country went to war, multiple others would inevitably follow, creating a system where a single spark could ignite a global conflagration. No, where were tensions higher than in the Balkans, a region filled with competing ethnic groups and nationalist movements, particularly Serbian nationalists who believed that all Slavic people should unite under Serbia, an ideology known as Pan-Slavism, which directly threatened Austria-Hungary's control of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Among these young nationalists was 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip, a quiet but determined student who had grown up under Austro-Hungarian rule and believed the empire oppressed his people, and who became involved with revolutionary groups connected to the Black Hand, a secret organization committed to undermining imperial control and achieving Serbian unification. When Princip and his allies learned that Franz Ferdinand would visit Sarajevo on June 28, they saw the perfect opportunity to strike a blow that would resonate far beyond the city, and 7 conspirators were positioned along the Archduke's route carrying pistols, bombs, and even cyanide to avoid capture. As the motorcade moved through the crowded streets that morning, one conspirator hurled a bomb at the Archduke's car, but the explosive bounced off the vehicle and detonated behind it, injuring officers but leaving the Archduke unharmed. A failed attempt that might have ended the story had fate not intervened. Despite the danger, Franz Ferdinand insisted on visiting the wounded in a local hospital, and a miscommunication caused the driver to take a wrong turn, stopping the car directly in front of Gavrilo Princip, who had been wandering in frustration after the failed bombing attempt. In a moment that would alter the course of history, Princip stepped forward, pulled out his pistol, and fired 2 shots, one striking Franz Ferdinand and the other hitting his wife Sophie, killing both within minutes and setting off a chain reaction that Europe had long feared but could not prevent. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination and issued demands that Serbia could not fully accept, and on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war, triggering the alliance system that quickly pulled Russia, Germany, France, and Britain into a conflict that spread across Europe and beyond. The war, which would later be called World War I, saw millions of soldiers mobilized, fighting in trenches that stretched hundreds of miles, enduring horrific conditions while facing weapons of unprecedented lethality, including machine guns, poison gas, tanks, and submarines, making battlefields scenes of unimaginable destruction and suffering. The conflict expanded as colonies and nations worldwide were drawn in, creating a truly global war, and for long years, millions perished while empires crumbled. Economies collapsed and societies were forever altered, with Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, Germany, and Russia all experiencing revolutionary change or collapse by 1918. The Treaty of Versailles sought to impose order, punishing Germany with territorial losses, military restrictions, and reparations, yet these measures sowed resentment and instability, creating conditions for another catastrophic war just 2 decades later, illustrating how one small event, the assassination in Sarajevo, could reverberate across decades and shape the destiny of nations. Beyond the political and military consequences, the human cost was staggering. Ordinary soldiers and civilians faced starvation, disease, and violence, with countless personal stories of heroism, loss, and survival that are often overshadowed by the grand narrative of empires, treaties, and battles. Technological innovations designed for war, from chemical agents to artillery bombardments, transformed combat into industrial-scale slaughter, while aerial reconnaissance and early tanks changed strategy, yet failed to alleviate the misery of trench life. As soldiers endured mud, lice, shellfire, and the constant threat of death, creating a living hell that became emblematic of modern warfare. The assassination itself remains a stark reminder of the fragility of peace, showing how a single individual, a wrong turn, and a single bullet can ignite tensions already brewing, with consequences magnified by political alliances, nationalism, and militarism that had been festering for decades. Historians continue to debate the inevitability of World War I, yet the Sarajevo assassination demonstrates the interplay between individual agency and systemic forces, revealing a moment when chance and intention collided to produce one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. As empires fell and new nations emerged, the lessons of 1914 highlight the dangers of unchecked alliances, extreme nationalism, and the escalation of military power, showing that the echoes of one bullet can reshape borders, governments, and societies for generations to come. Looking back, we see that history is not only shaped by kings, generals, and treaties, but also by small, seemingly insignificant actions whose effects ripple outward, reminding us that sometimes the fate of millions can hinge on the decisions of a single person on a single day. And in Sarajevo that day, one bullet changed the world forever.